Good morning, traders. Today is Monday, the 9th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Please smash that like button if you don't mind. Don't have a lot of good news, to be real with you guys. On Friday, at the end of the day, I talked about this breaking out of balance once again on Friday. Is very bearish to see and increases the odds of continuation to the downside. Okay, that is breaking below this box here. So we did it over here, and then we immediately tried to pull back in, got us to the opposite end of the balance, barely poked above, and then we immediately broke back below again. So that is just a sign this market is not ready to go higher right now. And if it's not ready to go higher, it's got to go lower, looking for buyers down there. That's how the auction process works. So that is a little bit bearish to see that we broke out of balance yesterday. On top of that, we have value overlapping to lower 3 days in a row, and we got a continuation of that downtrend in the overnight for both indices, the ES and the NQ. That is also bearish to see. And then we're opening with a gap down this morning, which means that we are opening below yesterday's low. It's a small gap, but we are opening below yesterday's low, which is also a bearish thing to see. So the first order of business this morning will be trying to fill the gap, trying to get our way back up to yesterday's low. And see, do we get resistance in there, right? As the market works, it won't be exactly to the dot at yesterday's low, but if the market fails to be able to get up into yesterday's range and rejects back down, that is extremely bearish. That is what we call a gap and go. Also, if the market is unable to fill the gap, it looks like it will. It was a very small gap, so it should be able to fill that. But if they can't fill it at all and they immediately start to sell off, that is also a gap and go, which is bearish as well. Okay, so the only thing that would get me neutral today is if we're able to push up into yesterday's range, come back down and find some support around yesterday's low, then I could look for an attempt to push back up to maybe yesterday's halfback, 41.08. Or this node of volume where we did all the trading yesterday around the POC, or on Friday around the POC. So that like 42.20-ish level. So, but only if we can get back into yesterday's range and then find support would I look for that. Otherwise, the gap down is a bearish signal, looking for further downside continuation. Okay. Overnight inventory was net short, so obviously the ticks and the internals are opening very, very bearish. We got to give them some time to absorb that overnight activity, and that's what the gap fill is for. So it's still a gap and go. They've got one more tick they need to fill. And then we can see, do new sellers pile on at yesterday's low, or can we get back up in the range? Okay, that's the gap filled. Wow, these are really bearish readings on the internals here. This is like extreme. Gap and go, stop to a tick at yesterday's low. Extremely bearish readings on the internals. So this is not looking good for the buyers here. First thing that caught my eye looking at the daily this morning is that there's this random little gap, even in the futures. There's this random little gap down here that was left behind. So to fill that old gap to the downside, we'd need to target about 40.10. Looking for potential support there. That may be a target for today. It seems like it's pretty far away, but that's bearish. So it's not impossible to imagine. Potential support around the overnight low here, same place where they got the taper. Right, they ran out of sellers down there. We might as well here today, but it seems less probable with the gap and go being the most bearish scenario. And we also have value lower once again, fourth day in a row. Potentially could lead to a continuation of the downtrend. Let's pop over and take a look at the Q. So the NQ didn't quite fill its gap. They've still got a few points left. So it is also a gap and go on the NQ as well. Potential support around the 12,350s. Good morning to everyone in the chat. Caffeine, Cyrus, Eldora, Scooball, David Glass, MWJB, Will, Greg H, Boss Man, The Shaw, Cortman, JB, almost 2,000 subscribers. Yeah, we're getting close. I posted a question on the social this weekend about how should we celebrate. It has to be something we all do together. I didn't reach 2,000 without you guys. You guys are the ones that did the heavy lifting with all the support in the comments and sharing on your social media. So we all need to celebrate this win together. Let me know if you have any ideas. Hustler Forever. Ronald is here. Joe, Texas, back with us. T-Bay. Like number 21. That's a lucky number. Novice Trader, welcome back. Bruno, good morning to you. John Last, Jocklo, JG, and Philip, good morning to all of you. All right, man, this is a gap and go. They can't even repair the week high. Ugh. It would appear the sellers remain in control of this market. So I am bearish unless they can get back above yesterday's low and hold it up there. They may still poke up and just repair that week high, but unless they bring in new buyers, it looks like the momentum is to the downside. We got good taper on the high, but we don't have good excess because we stopped 2 a tick at yesterday's low. So that tells us that there are sellers waiting up there, but they may need one more push. So there you go. That's the repair of that weak high. So now the buyers have to take control. They got to get the ticks above the zero line, and they got to bring in new buyers up here in yesterday's range. Otherwise, the odds are for continuation lower. Okay, so there's a failure to bring in buyers inside of yesterday's range. That is bearish. Corbin says, great news for negative people. Yeah, all the perma bears are loving this. All the people, all the gold bugs who've been talking about this was going to happen for the last 15 years. They're finally getting their moment. Or for the last like 12 years, I should say. John, Jack, and JT, good morning to you guys. Scooball, GlobalX gap didn't fill at overnight. Do you mean the gap from the previous overnight to last night? Oh, you mean that little gap. Yeah, I wouldn't pay much attention to that. What's really going to be more important is yesterday's range, Friday's range. If there's not new buyers that want to do business up here, there's only one way to go. Of course, there is always door number 3, rotation sideways and going nowhere today. But yesterday was the first legit day of breaking out of balance. So that, usually would lead to a bit more excess. Maybe not. We only spent 1 day balancing. So, yeah, I guess a sideways day is possible, but certainly not bullish. David V, Sanju, and Daniel, welcome. Herman, good to see you. Nor Auto Trader in the house. Being prosperous is being prosperous. Good to have you. Scott, gold and silver are tanking too, are they? Yeah, Bitcoin's getting beat up. I was just looking at that this morning like, yikes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of support for Bitcoin in the 30s here, between like 30 and 32. So I don't think it's going to drop like a brick, but man, if it breaks like 29, we could be heading down to 20. It could get real messy real quick. Yeah, gold's doing fine. That was just getting a little bit overbought, a little too fast. Okay, so now is the support, the market was just bouncing off this like 58 level here, trying to get into yesterday's range. Does that support now become resistance? Xavier, good morning to you. Donkey, good to see you. Arcaleon back with us. Donkey says blood in the streets. Blood in the streets. That is true. Fear and panic. WSS note said you were out the first hour this week. No. Where'd you see that note? Yo, you may be talking about on the email this morning. I just said the website is down right now. They're working on getting it fixed. So if it's not up and running by the 10:30, I'll post the link in the Discord. All right, sellers continuing to pile on. Some potential support around the overnight low here, 40-30 area. If that breaks, we're looking for continuation lower. Superstar says Bloody Mary, my favorite. Is that blood first thing in the morning? There will be blood. Let's pop over and take a look at the queue. Okay, they filled their gap as well. Could not bring in new buyers inside yesterday's range. That is bearish. So they got some support between here and 12,340. If that overnight low breaks, look for continuation to the downside. Again, these readings on the internals are very bearish. Is Kubal weird for me? What's weird? Tom D, good morning to you. All right, well, the buyers just stepped in, got the ticks back above the zero line. So that gets me back to neutral here. And I will be back to bearish if they fail to bring in buyers inside yesterday's range. But now we'll see if this that was resistance becomes support. Scooball, the buyers are weird. The buyers, well, they're trying to buy the dip, you know? The question is there enough of them to keep us in yesterday's range? All right, so once again, we're back in this node around 57. It was support, then it was resistance. Let's see if it's support. If it breaks once again, we're heading back down towards the lows. I hate to say it, guys. Just reading these comments in like order here. Scooball, the buyers are weird. Scott, no buyers, go away. I have limit orders. Gar, and then Superstar. These buyers are annoying as fuck. That's why it's working. The market will move to go fill your stops. If everybody gets bearish and puts their stops super tight, right there at yesterday's low, the market's going to come back up and fill those first before it continues lower. It's going to move to wherever the liquidity is waiting. So it's because of all your comments that we got this bounce. All right, that support is breaking, increasing the odds. We're heading back down to the lows once again. It's worth noting if the only internal that looks good, I mean, this obviously doesn't look good. We're still at negative 350 here on the advancers versus decliners. But if that's the only one that looks good and the others are bearish, which they are, you know, the ticks can't get above the zero line and the breadth is continuing to trend lower, that just shows you that's rotation, right? Because this is measuring the money going into the stocks that are going up versus the money that's going into the stocks going down. So that just tells you that they're rotating into whatever stocks are going up right now, not necessarily that the market is bullish overall. RK, what happens when everyone is bearish? The market goes up. It does the opposite of what the majority of participants want. But that's not really a way to play it intraday. You know? The blood in the streets comment, that's like if you're a long-term investor. Intraday, anything can happen. It's also worth noting, somebody was talking about this on CNBC this weekend, is like, we haven't really had a good capitulation day either. We haven't had one of those days where the market just murders all day long. That's really what you need to make a low. You need to get every single person out of their longs. So once again, same as before, we got resistance now. Breaking back through the half back should act as resistance. And we got support down here. So whichever of these breaks, the market should get continuation in that direction. But it failed to the upside when it just broke a second ago. So that increases the odds. They were just heading up to fill all those stops. And now the momentum will be to the downside. Screwball, maybe there's no more weak hands buyers. You know, they're sellers. Look at those ticks. They cannot get those ticks above the zero line. Every time they try to, there are sellers waiting to punch this market down. This still counts as a gap and go. You still got value lower. And you've got proof that there are sellers. This resistance should hold. The more times we pass through it, the more it acts like it's not resistance, but more like a POC, like a magnet that's pulling price to it. So we may be looking at a rotational day inside the overnight range if they break through it once again. Mateus, I know you don't show your trades, but when would you be looking to add to a longer term portfolio? I mean, here's the thing about me and longer term portfolios. I just use the Ray Dalio all weather portfolio. So it's not really about getting in and out of the market. It's about rebalancing. But I have been doing that. So essentially, like, the stock and bond portion of my portfolio has been going down, but the commodities, portion has been going up. So I've been selling commodities, buying stocks, and just kind of rebalancing it, because I've just learned I'm not good at timing the market. I am looking at Bitcoin, though. I was saying to myself, it's funny how, like, you plan these things ahead of time and then you chicken out. I was saying to myself at 32, I'd start buying. But now that we're 32, I'm like, I'm going to wait for 30. Now, I've been waiting for it, and now I'm chickening out. Harry, still don't understand Bitcoin. Have never used it. The simplest way to explain it to a lot of people who just don't understand it is it's just a new technology that is superior to the old technology. It's not perfect yet, just like, the early days of the internet. You had to get on through your telephone line, and it was slow and annoying, but it got better and better and better. It's the same thing with crypto. It's just a new technology that's still in its development phase. But there's no doubt it's going to, change a lot of different industries. The only two that I think are safe investments is Bitcoin and Ether. The rest, it's a gamble. All right. Well, we got a poor low now. Normally the market pushes away from a poor low and then comes back to repair it. If we immediately repair it, meaning we immediately get 2 ticks below that A period low, that is more bearish to see. And I will switch the banner back to bearish at that point. Doesn't mean sell right here. We may get another push up into resistance, but it just means the momentum is to the downside. Yes, sir. David V, what do you think of investing in blockchain ETFs? I haven't done enough research into it to know, to be honest with you. So I couldn't answer that question. Rob, yeah, I'm in 2 tick increments right now. Okay, so I'm looking for some resistance here around 48. If not, at the halfback at 52 or 51. David Cooper feels more rotational. Could be. Could be. I would say at this point, if we get back through the node around the open, I would definitely consider it rotational. But you got the gap and go. You got value lower. You got the ticks unable to stay above the 0 line. So the market generated information is bearish right now. We just haven't gotten the follow through with price yet. Cortman says, watched the e-course this weekend. Great stuff. It's definitely got me rethinking my strategy after watching it. Well, that's the hope. Just get your brain working. Ask yourself why you make the decisions you do and measure how effective that decision making is. Scooball, the sellers are weak. I think that's a great way to describe it. It feels like the people who've been shorting here have been doing it with really tight stops. And so the market just kind of keeps coming back up to wipe out their stops. But it does still feel like they have the momentum. I'll change my mind if they get above this node at 58.50. JB also watched the course. Glad to hear it. Thank you. Alex, yeah, the website is down. They're working on it. If you check your email, there should be an email there with the link to the private stream. And And I'll post it in the Discord as well once we switch over. Alex, you don't get my emails? Double check your spam folder and your promotions folder. Every time people say they don't get it, it's always in there. So give that one more look. So remember that price is just an advertising mechanism. What price is doing doesn't matter, right? So what is price doing right now? Over and over again, price is pulling us into this range. And then how is the market reacting to that? It's selling, right? Every time price pushes up, what happens to the ticks? They get smacked right back down. So don't let price fool you when it keeps pushing up and up and up. It's pushing up into resistance. And that is a sign that the sellers are in control. Rob, guess I'm going to have to step up and get the e-course? Do it, brother. Come to the dark side. No, like I said, the e-course was not just thrown together. I spent months and months and months working on it specifically to be a tool to answer all those questions that people in the brigade often have trouble wrapping their mind around. So it really, I think, is a great tool. I think they go hand in hand, the live streams and the course. But you can get everything from just the live streams. So it's certainly not mandatory. Skubal, but the resistance is getting weaker and weaker. Is it, though? I would say it's the support that's getting poked at. Yeah, Isaac, the e-course link doesn't work. The site is down right now. It should be fixed any minute. But if it's not up today, just check tomorrow. It'll be working then. Scott, like overnight highs and resistance, I still struggle with those concepts. Any suggestions? You mean with overnight highs being resistance? So the way to think about, any previous high or low, whether it's the previous day's high or low or the overnight's high or low, is that essentially that's where business concluded last night, right? So if we look at the volume here, we can see there were fewer and fewer traders willing to do business down here. Okay, we can see that there was this last little fight, this last little bit of support that they used to eventually push the market back up, but that below there's not a lot of business. So the first assumption you want to make as the regular trading hours market pushes into that is that the same thing will happen to us, right? As we push down there, we'll taper off our volume, run out of sellers, and then we'll head back up. But if it doesn't happen, if we push below there, well, then there's new business that wants to push the market lower here, and that's bearish. So it would be the same thing on the upper end, right? If, we pushed our way up into here, towards the overnight highs, and this is bad taper. That's like an error on my data. If we push our way up into there and we run out of business up there, that's resistance. It was resistance in the overnight, so you would assume we would run out of people willing to do business up there in the regular trading hours as well, and so on and so forth. David, can the e-course be absorbed in a weekend? Well, it's 4.5 hours long. It's probably a little too boring to sit and watch straight 4.5 hours. You'll probably be bored out of your mind. But it's, everybody learns differently. So if you could sit and watch it one time through and absorb everything, then yeah, you could do it in a weekend. But I think the way you'll more likely use it is you'll watch it one time through, and then you'll be sitting and watching the live streams, and I'll start talking about something. Like I'll bring up the fact that, the overnight low might be support. If it breaks, we look for resistance or something like that. And then you go, okay, let me look up that video and figure out why he's saying that. Like this morning I talked about the gap and go, value is lower, the ticks, like all of these things. If something I said doesn't make sense after you've watched the e-course, you'll want to go back and watch that section again to be able to wrap your mind around it, because every single thing I talk about is in the course. Okay, so we're testing the last little support we got here from that overnight low, pushing below there, coming back up and finding resistance. Would look for continuation to the downside. This low is also considered weak because it is exactly the same as the overnight low. So that increases the odds that we need to push a few ticks lower at the very least. Gotta feel sorry for the buyers who are buying exactly at the overnight low. They don't know. They don't understand. Shit's weak. Probably putting their stops just a tick below, and the market's like, oh yeah, we're taking this sucker lower. Wipe those out. Is there a video on Murderbot? The only video I could make on Murderbot would be a video that says Murderbot is random. I would pay money to see a video that explains Murderbot in a way that would be tradable. Donkey, if you buy it at this weakness, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but my shorts ain't one. Okay, so as we print the C period here, another poor low, we've left behind these single prints in the B period, so that increases the odds. The market will try to push back up and backfill those, but that there will be resistance waiting at 40.37. And obviously, if we get one more tick lower on the C period, we've begun one time framing lower, which increases the odds of continuation to the downside. There you go. We are now trending lower. So there really is very few things that are a better sign of momentum to the downside than a gap and go that begins to one time frame lower. So that's a pretty bearish signal to get. I will definitely be looking for resistance at 41.37. And with that, I shall bid you all farewell. Unfortunately, the website is down today, so you cannot join the brigade if you're interested, but you can always check back tomorrow. Otherwise, I will be back here tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Happy Monday.